A millionaire catches a homeless boy dancing with his paralyzed daughter. What he did next shocked everyone. The sprawling beige mansion stood like a silent monument to wealth. But inside its walls, there was no laughter, no joy, only the quiet ache of what had been lost. For over a year, the life of the millionaire's only daughter had been defined by one piece of cold metal. Her black wheelchaired 5-year-old Emily, a white girl with wild blonde curls and bright hazel eyes, had been paralyzed from the waist down after a devastating car accident. Once a whirlwind of energy and curiosity, she now spent most of her days staring out of the tall windows, watching life move without her. Her father, Richard Hale, a tall man in his early 40s with sharp features and a perfect white suit, had tried everything money could buy. The best doctors, cutting-edge therapy, experimental treatments overseas. Nothing worked. Every failed attempt chipped away at him, not just as a father, but as a man who believed there was nothing in the world he couldn't fix on a warm afternoon. Richard stepped out into the mansion's front garden, expecting to find the usual scene. Emily quietly sitting, maybe a book in her lap, her expression distant. But what he saw froze him mid-step. Emily was laughing. Not a polite smile, not a forced giggle for someone else's benefit, but a real, unrestrained laugh, so loud it seemed to echo through the air. Her little hands were clapping rapidly, her face glowing with delight. And in front of her was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 9 years old, barefoot with skin the color of deep bronze and a halo of unruly black curls. His clothes, an oversized olive brown t-shirt and matching shorts, hung loosely from his thin frame. His knees were scraped, his ankles dusty, but his eyes sparkled with a mischief that matched his grin. The boy was dancing, but not like anyone Richard had ever seen. He exaggerated his steps, hopping from side to side, twisting his arms into silly shapes. He pretended to slip, caught himself dramatically, then pointed at Emily as if daring her not to laugh. She laughed harder. Richard's first reaction was instinctive anger. This was his private property. How had this child gotten past the gates? Where was security? He took a step forward, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the grass. But then he stopped. Emily wasn't just watching. She was leaning forward in her wheelchair, her back straight, her eyes alive, her arms moving as if trying to copy him, her toes wiggling inside the open air. It had been months since he'd seen her this engaged in anything. The boy noticed him. Their eyes met for the briefest second. Richard expected him to freeze or run. Instead, the boy's grin widened, and he spun in a wide circle before bowing like a performer on stage. Emily clapped wildly, beaming. Richard stepped back behind one of the garden's marble columns, his chest tightening. He didn't want to interrupt. Not yet. Something was happening here. Something he didn't understand, but couldn't risk ending. The boy danced harder, dropping to the grass, rolling over, springing back up, never breaking eye contact with Emily. She laughed so hard she had to wipe tears from her cheeks. It was the first time Richard had seen her cry from joy since the accident. Minutes passed. The world outside the mansion's gates seemed to disappear, leaving only the boy's rhythmic movements and Emily's delighted claps. Richard found himself gripping the column, his knuckles pale, torn between the urge to step in and the fear of shattering whatever fragile magic had taken hold. Finally, the boy stopped, pretending to pant like he had just finished a grand performance. Emily squealed again. Again, the boy gave a mock bow, starting another routine without hesitation. Richard's mind raced. Who was this boy? Where had he come from? And why did it feel like he was watching the first sign of life returning to his daughter? He stayed hidden, watching as Emily's face remained lit with joy. Every movement the boy made seemed perfectly designed to make her feel like she was part of something, even from her wheelchair. Richard could see her muscles tensing in ways they hadn't in months, her body shifting ever so slightly in rhythm with him. The millionaire's heart pounded. And for the first time in a long time, it wasn't from frustration. It was from hope. Fragile, terrifying hope. But hope wasn't something Richard Hale allowed himself easily anymore. He needed answers, and tomorrow he would get them. Tomorrow he would step out from behind that column, and he would find out exactly who this boy was. The next afternoon, Richard didn't hide. Emily was already in the garden, the late sunlight wrapping her in a golden glow. She looked expectant, glancing toward the front gates every few seconds. Then, as if summoned by her anticipation, the boy appeared. He slipped through the hedge, near the sidewall, bare feet silent on the grass. His clothes were the same as yesterday, only dustier. He didn't see Richard at first. He went straight to Emily, arms raised in an exaggerated greeting. "Ready for the show?" he grinned. "Yes." Emily squealed, clapping her hands. But before he could start, Richard stepped forward. The boy froze mid-step, his smile faltering, his eyes darting toward the gate, then back to Emily. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, voice low. "I didn't mean." "It's all right," Richard interrupted, his tone firm, but not harsh. "I just want to talk." Emily's head whipped toward her father. "Daddy, please don't make him go. He's my friend." Her voice carried a rare urgency, almost fear. Richard crouched down so he was level with the boy. "What's your name?" "Jay," the boy answered after a pause. "How old are you, Jay?" "9. I think." "You think?" Jay's eyes flickered to Emily, then down. To the grass. "I don't have, you know, a birthday cake or anything. Nobody ever told me." Richard's chest tightened. "Where do you live?" Jay hesitated. "Around. Sometimes at the old bus station. Sometimes in the laundry room at the apartments if no one's there. I just find places." Emily's eyes were wide, her hands gripping the arms of her wheelchair. "He's not bad, Daddy. He makes me happy." Richard looked at her, at the way her cheeks were flushed with excitement, her posture more upright than he'd seen in months, and realized she was right. "What were you doing yesterday, Jay?" "Why, come here?" Richard asked. "I was walking by," Jay said softly, "and I heard music from your garden. I saw her watching from over here, but she looked sad. So I started dancing at first just to make her laugh, but then she told me to do more. So I came closer. I wasn't trying to steal anything, sir. His voice broke slightly. She looked like she needed it." Richard stayed silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Emily. "Sweetheart, how do you feel right now?" "Happy," she said without hesitation. "Like I can move again even if I can't." Richard's eyes dropped to her bare feet, and his breath caught. Her toes twitched. Not much, just a small movement, but real. Over the next week, Richard didn't send Jay away. Instead, he told the guards to let him in every afternoon. Jay came, sometimes with little scraps of food he'd found, sometimes just with his endless energy. He danced, told stories, made silly faces. Emily joined in however she could, lifting her arms, leaning forward, even pushing against the wheels to spin her chair in small circles. The change was undeniable. Emily's doctor, after a checkup, was stunned. "I don't know what you've been doing," he told Richard, "but keep doing it. This kind of emotional engagement, it's rare and it's working." One late afternoon, as Jay danced to an old jazz tune playing from the speakers, Emily suddenly placed her hands on the armrests, pushed hard, and lifted herself halfway out of the chair. Richard, standing nearby, froze. She held herself there for 3 full seconds before collapsing back, panting but grinning. "I did it," she gasped. Jay hooped, spinning in a wild circle, then dropped to his knees beside her. "You're amazing." Richard knelt too, his throat tight. "You are," he said, brushing a curl from her forehead. Then he looked at Jay. "And so are you." That night, after Emily was asleep, Richard found Jay sitting quietly on the back steps. The boy looked small against the vastness of the mansion. "You can't keep living like this," Richard said. Jay shrugged. "Been doing it my whole life." "Not anymore." Richard's voice was steady. "From today, you live here. You'll have a room, meals, clothes. You'll go to school. You'll be part of this family." Jay stared at him, eyes wide. "Why? You don't even know me." Richard's gaze softened. "Because you gave my daughter something no doctor, no therapy, no amount of money could. You gave her hope. And I won't let the person who did that sleep on a cold floor again." Jay swallowed hard, looking away, but not before Richard saw the tears forming. The next day, the garden was livelier than ever. Jay danced, Emily clapped, and Richard stood watching, a faint smile tugging at his lips. For the first time in a long time, the mansion didn't feel like a prison of silence. It felt like home. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.